Hey guys, in today's video I'd like to share the 5 things I wish I knew before building my first gaming PC. My previous PC was a pre-built that I bought 5 years ago, and last week my GPU finally gave out on me. So this time around I decided I wanted to build my own PC because pre-builts typically come with a higher price and lower quality parts, considering a portion of the price tag is set aside for labor. As a disclaimer, this is my first time building a gaming PC from scratch, and I am by no means an expert. Hence, this is not a step-by-step PC building guide, but more of a video sharing what I've learned from the process and maybe provide some tips that will resonate with newer PC builders out there like myself. So without further ado, here are 5 tips that will hopefully make your first PC building experience a lot smoother. Number 1. PC Part Picker is your best friend. You might already know this, but PC Part Picker is a website that allows you to select the different components in your build. And more importantly, it confirms if those components are compatible with each other. If you're like me and you are salvaging an old CPU and RAM sticks, you can simply enter those components first, and PC Part Picker will show you all the other components that are compatible with your current CPU and RAM. If you're building everything from scratch, I would recommend starting with selecting your GPU first because that is currently the hardest component to acquire, and then your motherboard, CPU, and so forth. Components like the GPU are usually backwards compatible, meaning that if you have an older motherboard like a B550 with a PCIe 4 connector, your newer NVIDIA 50 series GPU that is designed for PCIe 5 should work with your older motherboard. However, its performance will just be limited by PCIe 4 speeds, so just something to keep in mind. Now, number 2, once you have your parts, plan out your installation process. The standard installation process typically looks something like this. First, installing the CPU onto the motherboard, installing your RAM sticks, then your M2 SSDs, then the CPU cooler, and finally installing the motherboard into your case, and then installing the power supply unit and securing it and connecting the power cables. Next, installing the remaining SSDs, panel switches, and RGBs, and finally the final step being your GPU. If you're building your PC for the first time, I would highly recommend following this to the T because it will save you a lot of time from having to remove parts because something does not fit, or worse yet, damaging pins and components from loose parts moving around, etc. GPU is the final step for a very important reason, and that is because it is the most expensive part, so you definitely don't want to risk damaging it while trying to install other components after it is already connected. A simple mistake will cost you hundreds, if not thousands of dollars. Number 3, power supply unit. So 2 things I want to mention regarding the power supply. First is do not use your old power supply cable on your new power supply. I did not realize this and I thought they were compatible because they all look the same. But connecting a cable designed for a 800 watt PSU to a 500 watt PSU, for example, will run the risk of destroying your components, including your GPU. If you're upgrading your PSU, I would recommend removing the older PSU and storing the old cable away and out of sight, so to not get confused with mistakenly using the old PSU cable. Next is to check your PSU fan orientation. The PSU has one side with a fan that will always draw air into the power supply unit and out the vent, which is usually out the back of your PC. So pay attention to the fan on the PSU. You typically want to orient it downwards if your PSU is located on the bottom and there is a vent on the bottom. This will allow your PSU to draw air from outside and through the filter and out the back. If you don't have a vent on the bottom like mine, you want to orient it upwards so it draws air from within your PC and out the back. This will result in slightly warmer air being drawn into the PSU, but this shouldn't be an issue as long as you have some fans around your PC cooling down the components. If your PSU is located on top and you have a vent on the top, you want the fan oriented upwards so it pulls air from outside. Pretty straightforward, and I hope you get the idea here. Now, number 4, now that you have everything installed, or have you? Don't forget your Windows operating system. If you're building a new PC, I would recommend installing a fresh Windows to avoid any bugs or glitches from the previous hard drive. There's many ways to do this, but I like to load a Windows Media installation file onto a formatted USB and load it from the BIOS. There's many guides out there on how to do this, so make sure to not skip this step or you'll end up having a working PC but without an operating system. Some motherboards will also require you to download the different drivers for your Wi-Fi, LAN, etc. And again, PC Part Picker should tell you these ahead of time if you need to download any drivers onto the USB as well. Make sure you prepare these ahead of time to avoid any setbacks. And number 5, last but not least, be patient and don't force anything that doesn't feel right. When in doubt, take a pause, look up a YouTube video or Google search, type in your specific part and issue you're encountering, and you're almost always likely to find an answer. The PC building community is vast, and I can almost guarantee someone out there has ran into the same issue that you've had. Components like the CPU pins are very fragile, so you don't want to be brute forcing anything into place if it feels stuck. You likely have the wrong cable, you did not align it right, or perhaps you have it flip upside down, which is very common. So it is ideal to set up a workstation on a table instead of working on the floor, as your legs and back will get tired from bending over for a prolonged period of time. So take breaks and be patient with it. So these are the 5 tips that will hopefully make your PC building experience a lot smoother. And if you're like me and you've never built a PC before, I would highly recommend you try it. It is not rocket science. You just have to make sure to do your research beforehand, know your parts, follow the instructions, and everything should go well. So hopefully this video helps you out. Leave me any comments or questions you have in the comment section below and I'll try to answer them. Have a good one, everyone. Bye.